He picked him because he was standing still. Everyone else in the City Hall marriage license office on that Thursday morning was moving, shuffling papers, checking phones, shifting from foot to foot with the particular restless energy of people managing bureaucratic time. The man near the permit window was not moving. He stood with his hands in his jacket pockets and his eyes on the middle distance, the specific stillness of someone who was entirely unbothered by the room around him. Sloane Garrett walked straight to him. "I need a favor," she said. "A significant one." He looked at her. Dark eyes. Unhurried. The look of someone who had been in more urgent rooms than this one and was not going to be moved by the opening. "How significant?" he said. "I need to get married," she said. "Today. Before 5 o'clock." He looked at her for a moment. He looked at the marriage license window across the room. He looked back at her. "Why?" he said. "My mother has arranged an engagement announcement for Saturday's charity gala," Sloane said. "To a man named Bradford Whitfield III. I have 2 days to make myself unavailable." She held his gaze. "I realize this is an unusual request." "It is," he said. "Agreeable." Still unhurried. "I'll owe you a favor," she said. "Within reason. Whatever you need, that's legal." "I don't need favors," he said. "I have one condition." "Name it," she said. "Whatever this is, you tell me the truth about it," he said. "No. On the courthouse steps before we go in. I want to know what I'm signing." She held his gaze. "Done," she said. He held out his hand. "Beckett Cross," he said. He shook it. "Sloane Garrett," she said. They went to the permit window first, because he had apparently been waiting for a zoning variance form and he was not the kind of person who abandoned tasks mid-completion. On the courthouse steps she told him everything. Not the sanitized version. The actual version. 23 years of Diane Garrett engineering every corner of her daughter's life. The school she had not chosen. The friends who had been approved. The internship that had been arranged. The apartment that had been selected. The career path that had been suggested so persistently that suggesting had become indistinguishable from deciding. And now Bradford Whitfield III, whose family had business connections with Diane's law firm, whose personal qualities were secondary to his network. The gala was Saturday. The announcement would happen Saturday. Unless Sloane was already unavailable. Beckett listened through the whole thing without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "How long do you need?" he said. "The engagement announcement is the immediate problem," she said. "After Saturday, I don't know. I assume we can discuss terms." "Terms," he said. Thoughtfully. Not sarcastically. "Of the arrangement," she said. "Time frame. What's required?" He looked at the street. He looked at her. 6 months, he said. "Enough to make it structurally solid. After that we discuss." "That's more than I needed," she said. "I know," he said. "But if we're doing this, it should be done correctly." She held his gaze. She did not ask what correctly meant to a man who had agreed to a courthouse marriage in under 12 minutes. He probably should have asked. They signed the license at 11:40. The ceremony took 7 minutes. The officiant was a woman named Patricia who had been doing this for 20 years and had the brisk, benevolent efficiency of someone who had witnessed approximately every variety of wedding motivation and had decided that none of it was her business. She pronounced them married at 11:52. Beckett signed. Sloane signed. Patricia stamped. Outside on the steps, Sloane held the certificate and looked at it. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet," he said. She looked at him. "Why not?" she said. "Because your mother is going to want to know who I am," he said. "And when she finds out, the conversation you were trying to avoid will become a different kind of conversation." "Different how?" she said. He produced a business card. He held it out. He took it. She read it. The name, Beckett Cross. 3 lines beneath. A company name she did not recognize, 2 titles that were not standard corporate titles, and a territory description that did not map to any industry she knew. She looked up at him. He was already walking toward a black car that had materialized at the curb. "Are you coming to the gala Saturday?" she said. "Across the steps." He stopped. He turned. "Yes," he said. "We're married. I'll be there." He got in the car. She stood on the courthouse steps with a marriage certificate in one hand and a business card she did not understand in the other. She had married a stranger to ruin her mother's weekend. She had not yet understood what kind of stranger. But Diane Garrett, when she read the name on that card Saturday night, would understand immediately. And the expression on her face was going to be the most significant thing Sloane had witnessed in 23 years. Diane Garrett had 3 phones. This was the first thing Sloane had ever told a therapist about her mother, not as a punchline, as a diagnostic detail. 3 phones. One for work, one for personal, one for what Diane called management. The management phone was for the conversations that required a different kind of discretion. Sloane knew about the management phone because she had been managed by it for 23 years. The call about Bradford had come 2 months ago. Not asking, telling. The specific language of a woman who had determined an outcome and was communicating the implementation timeline. Bradford Whitfield's family will be at the Hargrove Gala in November. I've arranged for you to be seated at their table. He's a good match, Sloane. His father's firm connects directly to ours and his personal qualities are, well, he's appropriate. Appropriate. The specific word of a woman who assessed human beings the way she assessed furniture. By function and presentation, by how well they occupied a space and complemented the surrounding arrangement. Sloane had sat on the phone and pressed her lips together and said nothing for a long enough moment that Diane had added, "This isn't negotiable, sweetheart." The word sweetheart in her mother's mouth had always meant, do not push back on this. The morning after the wedding, Sloane sat at the kitchen table in the apartment her mother had selected. 3rd floor, Upper West Side, good light, approved building, and held a cup of coffee that had gone cold. She held the business card beside it. Beckett Cross. The company name on the card was Meridian Group. The 2 titles were Principal and Managing Director, Eastern Operations. The territory line read, Northeastern Corridor, Tri-State Distribution and Asset Management. Nothing on the card was illegal sounding. Nothing on the card was entirely clear. She set it on the table. Her phone rang. A number she did not recognize. "I thought you should have mine," Beckett said. "Since we're married." She looked at the card. "The card," she said. "Meridian Group. What does it actually do?" "Pause. "Several things," he said. "That's not an answer," she said. "It's a Thursday morning answer," he said. "The full answer requires more context than a phone call." "You want to meet," she said. "You should know who your husband is," he said. "For the gala. If your mother asks questions, which she will, you need answers." He was right. She knew he was right. "Tonight," she said. 7, he said. "I'll send the address." He ended the call. She held the phone. She looked at the business card. She looked at the certificate on the counter, still in the folder from the city clerk's office. She had done impulsive things before. She had never done anything this specific. He sent the address at noon. A restaurant on the east side. The kind that existed before restaurants became places to be seen, that had been there for decades and had the particular amber warmth of a room that had hosted serious conversations for a long time. He was already at the table when she arrived. He stood when she came in, not performatively, just as a matter of course. They sat. He ordered for both of them without asking, and she was about to object and then realized he had ordered exactly what she would have ordered, which raised a question she was not ready to ask yet. "Meridian Group," she said. "Asset management," he said. "Property, distribution, certain financial services." "And the territory designation?" she said. He held his water glass. "Some of what Meridian manages is geographically organized," he said. "It requires coordination across the northeastern corridor." "That's still not a full answer," she said. "No," he said. She held his gaze. "You're going to tell me more on Saturday," she said. "When my mother reads the card." "Your mother already knows who I am," he said. Her hand on the glass went still. "She knows you," she said. "She knows of me," he said. "There's a difference." He held his glass. "Diane Garrett has represented several clients over the years whose interests intersected with mine. Not directly. Adjacent." "Adjacent how?" she said. He looked at the table. He looked at her. "The specific answer to that question," he said, "is the answer that changes what this feels like for you. And I want you to be able to go to the gala on Saturday without carrying that weight yet." She held the glass. "You're protecting me from information," she said. "I'm sequencing it," he said. "There's a difference." She held his gaze. "When?" she said. "After Saturday," he said. She held the glass. She looked at the table. She had married a stranger to ruin her mother's weekend. She had not expected to be sitting across from someone who understood information sequencing and knew what she would order and stood when she walked in as a matter of course. She looked at him. "What does my mother look like when she's genuinely afraid?" he said. She blinked. "I've never seen it," she said. "You'll see it Saturday," he said. He picked up his fork. She picked up hers. The amber light of the restaurant held. She did not yet know that adjacent covered a great deal more than she was prepared for. Saturday arrived with the specific quality of a day that had been arranged by someone else. The gala was at the Hargrove Hotel, Grand Ballroom, October flowers, the kind of event where the catering was excellent and the purpose of the evening was never the stated purpose. Diane had texted at 11 that morning. "We arrived at 7. Bradford's family will be at table 4. I expect you to be poised." Sloane had read the text. She had set the phone face down. She had put on the navy dress she had chosen herself, not the cream one Diane had sent a photo of 3 days ago, and she had met Beckett in the lobby of the Hargrove at 6:50. He was in a dark suit. He looked like someone who had attended events like this many times and found none of them particularly challenging. He looked at her dress. "Good choice," he said. "My mother wanted cream," she said. "I know," he said. She looked at him. "How do you know?" she said. "I know Diane," he said. "Cream is a control color for her. She uses it on people she's positioning." Sloane looked at him for a long moment. "Positioning," she said. "Let's go in," he said. The ballroom smelled of white lilies and warm candle wax and the particular expensive perfume of 100 people who had made coordinated choices about their Thursday evenings. Diane was at table 4. She was in black, elegant, composed, the specific composure of a woman who had organized this evening from table placement to flower arrangement and was currently executing it. Bradford Whitfield III was beside her. "I am 41 years old. Good-looking in the way that men were good-looking when they exercised appropriately and wore their clothes well and had never had to fight for anything that mattered." He held his champagne with the ease of someone entirely comfortable with the shape of his own life. Diane looked up when Sloane and Beckett crossed the room. Her smile arrived first, the automatic hosting smile. Then her eyes registered Beckett. The smile did not disappear. It shifted. Fractionally. In the specific way that faces shifted when the mind behind them was processing something it had not anticipated. "Sloane," Diane said. "I didn't know you were bringing someone." "This is Beckett," Sloane said. "My husband. We got married Thursday." The ballroom did not go silent. But the space immediately around table 4 acquired a quality. Bradford's champagne glass stopped moving. Diane's chin went up. She held her composure. She had been holding her composure in difficult situations for 40 years and it did not fail her now. "Your husband," she said. "Yes," Sloane said. Diane looked at Beckett. She held out her hand. "Beckett," she said. "The name alone." "Yes." He shook her hand. He produced the business card. He held it out. Diane took it. She read it. The color change was not dramatic. It was specific. The particular pallor that came from blood moving away from a surface. Not from shock, not from fear of a loud thing. From the quiet, rapid understanding of someone who has identified a situation and has immediately begun calculating its full implications. Diane held the card. She did not look at Sloane. She looked at Beckett. "Meridian Group," she said. "Yes," he said. "Eastern Operations," she said. "Yes," he said. Diane set the card on the table. She picked up her champagne. She drank. Her hand on the glass was perfectly steady. This was the thing that told Sloane the most. Her mother's hand steady when everything behind her eyes was not. Bradford was reading the card now, having picked it up from the table. He looked at it. He looked at Beckett. His champagne glass set itself down. "I think I need to speak with my parents," Bradford said. He stood. He walked away from the table without explaining further. Diane watched him go. She looked at Beckett. She looked at Sloane. "A word," Diane said. "Privately." "Of course," Beckett said. He looked at Sloane. "I'll be at the bar." He walked away. Diane looked at her daughter. Her composure was absolute. Her eyes were not. "Do you know what you've done?" she said. Quiet. Controlled. The voice that had always preceded the most significant corrections. "Yes," Sloane said. You have no idea what you've done, Diane said. Who that man is, what his family, what Meridian. She stopped. She pressed her lips together. How did you find him? City Hall, Sloane said. Diane stared at her. City Hall, she said. He was waiting in line, Sloane said. Something moved in Diane's face. Something Sloane had never seen before. Not anger. Not calculation. Something closer to the specific private expression of someone who has encountered a situation that is entirely outside the architecture they had built to manage their life. He agreed to this? Diane said. Yes, Sloane said. Why? Diane said. Sloane held her mother's gaze. He said he wants the truth between us, Sloane said. That was his condition. Diane held her champagne. She held it with both hands. Sloane. The first time she had said her name tonight without the composure behind it. Just, the name. You need to understand what you've walked into. Then tell me, Sloane said. Diane pressed her lips together. She looked at the bar where Beckett stood with his drink, unhurried, entirely at ease. She looked at her daughter. He'll tell you himself, she said. And when he does, when you understand what Meridian is, call me. She put the champagne glass down. She walked toward the door. The engagement announcement never happened. Bradford was on the phone with his parents. Diane was in a car by 8:15. And Sloane was holding a champagne glass in the middle of a ballroom, watching Beckett cross at the bar, and carrying her mother's last sentence like a stone. When you understand what Meridian is, call me. She was about to understand. The card was on the hallway table when she got home. She had not put it there. He had, when they'd arrived at the apartment after the gala, he had placed it on the hallway table with the specific, deliberate quality of something being left where it would be found and read without ceremony. He picked it up. She read it again. Meridian Group. Eastern Operations. Northeastern Corridor. Tri-State Distribution and Asset Management. He walked into the living room. Beckett was on the couch with a book. Not pretending to read. Actually reading. He looked up. You have questions, he said. Several, she said. Ask them, he said. I told you I want the truth between us. She sat in the chair across from him. She held the card. What is Meridian actually? She said. He set the book on the cushion beside him. An organization, he said. Structured around asset protection, distribution coordination, and dispute resolution across the Northeastern Corridor. Dispute resolution, she said. Among parties who prefer not to use conventional legal channels, he said. She held the card. Because the parties and their activities are not conventional, she said. In some cases, he said. She held his gaze. You're the head of it, she said. I manage it, he said. I inherited the structure from my father. I have been building it into something more organized, more regulated internally than what he left me. More regulated, she said. From what baseline? He held her gaze. From a baseline that would concern you if you understood its previous form, he said. She pressed her hands flat on her knees. Hi, Mother, she said. She recognized your name. She left the gala. Bradford's family. Bradford's father has made legal use of Meridian's services over the years, Beckett said. Financial structuring. He's a client. Not a particularly clean one. She held the card. My mother's firm represents people who use Meridian, she said. Adjacent, he said. That was the word I used. Adjacent was a significant understatement, she said. Yes, he said. She held the card. She held it for a moment. She looked at the table. She looked at him. Why did you agree to this? She said. Thursday morning. A stranger at City Hall. Why? He held the book. He looked at the cover. He looked at her. Because you told me the truth on the courthouse steps, he said. Without embellishment, without apology. You told me exactly what you were doing and why. He paused. I have been in rooms with people my entire life who said 7 words when 3 would serve and dressed motivations in language that obscured them. He held the book. You stood on courthouse steps and told a stranger the exact shape of what you needed. I found that compelling. She held the card. She held her gaze. And now you're my husband, she said. Yes, he said. For 6 months, she said. At minimum, he said. We said we'd discuss after Saturday. She looked at the card. She set it on the coffee table between them. She pressed her hands flat on her knees. "Tell me about your father," she said. He held the book. He set it beside him. He looked at the window. The city outside was doing what cities did at 9 on a Saturday night. Moving, lit, indifferent. "He built Meridian in the 70s, Beckett said. From a single transportation contract on the east side. By the time I was 12 it was significant. By the time I was 24 and he put me in a room with the full picture." He paused. "The full picture required some adjustments." "What kind of adjustments?" she said. "The kind that took 8 years, he said. Removing the parts that couldn't be legitimized. Building the parts that could. Replacing relationships that depended on violence with relationships that depended on negotiation." He held the window. "It's not finished. It will take another 5 years, approximately. You're restructuring an organized crime network into something legal," she said. He held the window. "I'm restructuring an organization that operated in gray and dark areas into something that operates in gray and light areas," he said. "The dark areas are gone." "Are they?" she said. "Yes," he said. "Flat. Final." She held her hands on her knees. She looked at the card on the table. She looked at him. "And here, right here at the middle of this story, we need to ask you something real. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted, a parent, a partner, a person you relied on, had been protecting you from the full picture of something? Had you given you the version of the truth that let you function, while managing a larger reality you weren't told about? What do you do with that? When the person who sequenced the information was doing it to protect you, does it make it better or worse when you find out? Tell us in the comments. Because what Sloane does next is the answer that defines the rest of everything." She picked the card up from the table. He held it. "My mother's firm," she said. "The clients she represents who use Meridian's services." Beckett waited. "She knew what Meridian was," Sloane said. "When she arranged my life, when she selected Bradford, she was keeping me in a world that was adjacent to yours and keeping me ignorant of the adjacency." "Yes," he said. "She managed me," Sloane said, "to keep me close to her sphere. And the sphere was connected to yours." She held the card. "She wasn't just controlling my life. She was positioning me in a specific geography." Beckett held the book. He said nothing. "The gala," Sloane said. "Bradford's family. Their relationship with Meridian through his father." She held the card. "She was marrying me into the periphery of your world without telling me the world existed." Beckett held the book. "Yes," he said. "Quiet." She pressed her hands flat. He pressed them so hard the knuckles went white. She looked at the window. She looked at him. "She'll call you," he said. "In the next 48 hours. She'll want to make some kind of arrangement." "What kind?" Sloane said. "The kind where she has a role in how this proceeds," he said. "She'll present it as protecting you." Sloane held the card. "She's been presenting everything as protecting me for 23 years, she said. Beckett held her gaze. "I know," he said. "Diane called at 9 on Sunday morning. Sloane was at the kitchen table. She let it ring twice. She answered. "We need to meet," Diane said. "Today." "Come here," Sloane said. "Pause." "Your apartment," Diane said. "Yes," Sloane said. Beckett was at the kitchen counter with coffee. He heard the exchange. He held the coffee and looked at the window and did not comment. Diane arrived at 11. She came in with the specific composed energy of a woman who had spent the previous 16 hours deciding exactly how to approach this conversation and had arrived at a strategy. She looked at Beckett in the kitchen. She looked at Sloane. "Could we speak privately?" she said. "No," Sloane said. Diane's jaw went tight for exactly 1 second. She sat down at the kitchen table. Beckett poured a third cup of coffee and set it in front of her without being asked. She looked at the coffee. He picked it up. He held it. "What you did Thursday was reckless," she said to Sloane. "I know," Sloane said. "You married a man you don't know." "I knew enough," Sloane said. "He told me the truth before he signed." Diane looked at Beckett. "Did you know who she was?" Diane said. "Her name," he said. "Not the rest." "You knew Garrett," Diane said. "Common name," he said. Diane held the coffee. She looked at Sloane. "There are things about the people connected to Meridian," she said. "Things you don't understand. The families, the arrangements. She paused. Bradford's family has a relationship with Meridian, that is. A client relationship, Sloane said. Beckett told me. Diane's hands on the cup tightened. He told you, she said. He told me the truth about everything I asked, Sloane said. Which is more than I can say for the other people in this conversation. Diane held the cup. He held it very still. I've been trying to protect you, she said. By marrying me to Bradford Whitfield, Sloane said. Bradford's family is adjacent to Meridian, Sloane said. Which means you were placing me in Meridian's orbit without telling me the orbit existed. She held her mother's gaze. I was a piece being moved on a board you never let me see. Diane pressed her lips together. She looked at Beckett. You're going to tell her everything, she said. Not accusatory. Assessing. Already started, he said. Diane held the cup. She held it with both hands. And something moved in her face. Something that was not the composed expression she had arrived with. Something underneath that expression reaching the surface. He was dangerous, she said. Quiet. Directly to Sloane. Not about Beckett. Sloane held her mother's gaze. Bradford, she said. His family, Diane said. The relationship with Meridian, the way they use it, it's not the way you use a legitimate service. They use it the way people use a tool that does what their own hands can't do cleanly. She pressed her lips together. I was not marrying you to Bradford because he was appropriate. I was marrying you to Bradford because I was afraid of what his family would do if the connection through my firm was not secured. The kitchen was completely still. Secured, Sloane said. His father has been a client for 6 years, Diane said. 2 years ago he made clear that the relationship included certain expectations. About access. About information. She held the cup. He suggested that a family connection would make the arrangement more stable. He threatened you, Sloane said. Diane held the cup. She held it and did not answer immediately. He presented options, she said finally. Sloane pressed her hands flat on the table. She looked at her mother. She looked at the woman who had controlled every corner of her life for 23 years, who had managed and arranged and positioned and said sweetheart in the voice that meant do not push back. She looked at her and understood for the first time that the control had not only been about control. Some of it had been about a man named Whitfield Sr. making options clear. And Diane had chosen the option that cost Sloane the most. Beckett set down his coffee. He looked at Diane. Whitfield Sr. has been using Meridian's distribution channels for financial activity that is outside of anything I approved, he said. Even complete. My compliance team has been building documentation for 3 months. He held Diane's gaze. He's using Meridian's name and structure for activity I ended when I took over the organization. Diane looked at him. You didn't know, she said. I know now, he said. What happens to him, she said. He's removed from Meridian's client registry, Beckett said. The documentation goes to the appropriate office. He held her gaze. Your firm's exposure through his representation. That's a different conversation. You'll need your own attorney. Diane looked at the table. She looked at the coffee. She looked at her daughter. I was going to tell you, she said. When it was handled. When the situation with Bradford was resolved and the connection was. You were never going to tell me, Sloane said. Diane held the cup. She did not argue. Sloane looked at her mother. Really looked for the first time not through the filter of 23 years of management. She saw a 61-year-old woman who had built a successful career and had allowed one client to turn that success into a leash. She saw what happened when someone spent 20 years controlling things and then lost control of one thing and began managing everything else harder to compensate. She saw her mother. She was still angry. But she also saw her mother. You need to tell your attorney everything today, Sloane said. Not Monday. Today. Diane held the cup. Yes, she said. Quiet. The quietest she had ever been at this table. She stood. She looked at Beckett. My daughter told you the truth on courthouse steps, she said. I hope you deserve that. She walked to the door. She let herself out. Sloane and Beckett sat in the kitchen. The coffee had gone cold. Neither of them touched it. Whitfield Sr., Sloane said. He'll be handled today, Beckett said. Handled how, she said. Documentation to the appropriate office, he said. The same way I handle all of the dark areas when I find them. He held her gaze. Legitimately. She held the table. She held it and looked at him. My mother has been afraid for 2 years, she said. Yes, he said. And she chose to manage it by managing me, she said. Yes, he said. She pressed her hands flat. Can you actually end it, she said. Whitfield's leverage over her firm. The documentation removes his standing to apply leverage, he said. Once it's in the appropriate hands, he has more to lose by pursuing it than by letting it go. She held the table. She looked at him. Do it, she said. He picked up his phone. He made one call. It lasted 4 minutes. And when he ended it, the machine that had been building for 2 years around Diane Garrett began to dismantle. Beckett's compliance director was a woman named Audra Chin. She arrived at the apartment at 2 in the afternoon with a briefcase and the specific, focused energy of someone who had been waiting for authorization to do something she had already prepared. She sat at the kitchen table. She opened the briefcase. 3 months of documentation. Whitfield Sr.'s use of Meridian's distribution infrastructure for financial activity that routed through the organization without Beckett's knowledge or approval. Specific transactions. Specific dates. Specific misrepresentation of Meridian's role in communications with other parties. How did he access the infrastructure? Sloan said. Audra looked at Beckett. He nodded. Through a relationship with a former Meridian associate, Audra said. The associate was removed from the organization 8 months ago when we discovered the connection to Whitfield's financial activity. We've been building documentation since then. She held the briefcase. The reason it took 3 months is we needed the documentation to be clean. Usable. Usable by whom? Sloan said. The U.S. Attorney's Office handles financial fraud at this scale, Audra said. We've been in preliminary contact for 6 weeks. Sloan looked at Beckett. You were already in contact with federal prosecutors, she said. Meridian's legitimization process includes relationships with the appropriate authorities, he said. We don't hide. We cooperate. She held the table. He processed this. Whitfield Sr. used Meridian's name and structure for fraud, she said. And you've been building a case against him for 3 months. Yes, Beckett said. While he was using that same connection to pressure my mother's firm, she said. I didn't know about your mother's firm until Saturday, he said. But yes. Simultaneously. She held the table. She looked at Audra. What happened to my mother's exposure? She said. Your mother's firm represented Whitfield as a client, Audra said. If she had knowledge of his fraudulent use of Meridian's infrastructure and did not disclose. She didn't know the details, Sloan said. She knew he was pressuring the firm. She didn't know what he was doing through Meridian. That distinction matters legally, Audra said. If she makes a voluntary disclosure to her own ethics board and the U.S. Attorney's Office, it positions her as a cooperating party rather than a knowing participant. She paused. She should do it today. Sloan picked up her phone. She called her mother. Diane answered immediately. I need you to call your attorney, Sloan said. Right now. Then I need you to call the U.S. Attorney's Office and ask for the contact name Audra Chin is going to send you in the next 5 minutes. She paused. You're a cooperating party, Mom. That's the position. But only if you call today. Diane was quiet for a moment. Who is Audra Chin? She said. Beckett's compliance director, Sloan said. She's been building the case against Whitfield for 3 months. Your voluntary disclosure today makes you a witness, not a subject. Diane was quiet. Sloan, she said. Yes, Sloan said. I'm sorry, Diane said. The quietest she had ever been in any phone call. Sloan held the phone. She pressed her lips together. Call your attorney, she said. Now. She ended the call. Audra sent the contact information. Audra packed her briefcase. She looked at Beckett. Filing with the U.S. Attorney today, she said. The documentation is complete. They'll move on it. Good, Beckett said. Audra left. Bradford Whitfield 3 called at 4. Sloan looked at the screen. She answered. I owe you an apology, Bradford said. I should have told you, my father's arrangement with certain parties. I knew it was complicated. I should have told you. Why didn't you? She said. Pause. Because my father told me not to, he said. And I have been listening to my father for 41 years. She held the phone. She looked across the kitchen at Beckett, who was reading again. Bradford, she said. Yes, he said. Talk to a lawyer today, she said. Not your family's firm. Your own lawyer. Tell them about your father's business activities in the past 2 years. A longer pause. Is this going to be bad for him? Bradford said. Yes, she said. Another pause. I always knew it would be, he said. Quiet. The specific quiet of someone who had been knowing something for a long time and had been too attached to the knowing to act on it. I just didn't want it to be me who. You have until tomorrow morning, she said. Call your lawyer tonight. She ended the call. She set the phone on the table. She looked at Beckett. Bradford didn't know the details either, she said. He knew his father was doing something. He didn't know what. His voluntary disclosure helps him, Beckett said, without looking up from the book. Yes, she said. She sat at the table. The kitchen was quiet. The city was outside the window doing what it did. Why are you doing all of this? She said. Beckett set the book down. He looked at her. I told you, he said. The dark areas are gone. When I find one that wasn't supposed to be there. That's not what I mean, she said. Whitfield Sr. is in the dark area. My mother is separate from that. Bradford is separate from that. She held the table. You are managing all of it. Today. For people you married a week ago. He held her gaze. I married one person a week ago, he said. She held the table. Why? She said. He held her gaze. Because you stood on the courthouse steps and told me the truth, he said. And everything since then has confirmed that the person who would do that deserves to have the truth work in her favor for once. She held the table. She held it with both hands. She pressed flat. She held his gaze. That's the whole reason, she said. He held her gaze. There are additional reasons, he said. I'm sequencing them. She held the table. She held her gaze. She breathed. Don't sequence them too long, she said. He held his gaze. No, he said. I won't. The U.S. Attorney's Office acknowledged receipt of Meridian's documentation on Monday. By Wednesday, Whitfield Sr.'s financial activities were under formal investigation. By Thursday, Diane Garrett's firm had submitted a voluntary disclosure to the State Bar Ethics Board and provided a full cooperating statement. Bradford Whitfield III had his own attorney. Diane called on Thursday evening. Sloan answered. How are you? Diane said. It was the most unmanaged question her mother had asked her in 23 years. Fine, Sloan said. Working. You. My ethics board meeting is next week, Diane said. My attorney says the voluntary disclosure it's going to be difficult but survivable. It is, Sloan said. Pause. Your husband, Diane said. Sloan waited. I underestimated what he's building, Diane said. What Meridian is becoming. She paused. I thought it was still what it was under his father. It isn't, Sloan said. No, Diane said. I can see that. Another pause. He's a careful man. Yes, Sloan said. Is he good to you? Diane said. Sloan held the phone. She looked across the apartment at Beckett, who was at the kitchen table with paperwork and coffee. Yes, she said. Diane was quiet for a moment. I would like to, at some point. When things are less, I would like to have dinner, Diane said. The three of us. When things are less, Sloan said. Yes, Diane said. I'll ask him, Sloan said. Don't ask him, Diane said. Tell him. You're his wife. You make plans. Sloan pressed her lips together. The corner of her mouth moved. Okay, she said. She ended the call. She walked to the kitchen. She sat across from Beckett. He looked up from the paperwork. My mother wants to have dinner, she said. The three of us. When things settle. He held the paperwork. When things settle, he said. 2 weeks probably, she said. The worst of the ethics board situation will be clearer. He set the paperwork on the table. He picked up his coffee. He said. She held the table. She held it and looked at him, and the kitchen was warm and the city was outside, and the situation that had started on courthouse steps 11 days ago had traveled a significant distance from where it began. The 6 months, she said. He held the coffee. Yes, he said. We said we'd discuss after Saturday, she said. It's been a week past Saturday. He held the coffee. What would you like to discuss? He said. She held the table. I would like to know if the sequenced additional reasons have reached the front of the queue, she said. He set the coffee down. He looked at her. He looked at her the way he had been looking at her since Thursday on the courthouse steps, with the specific patient attention of someone who had identified something worth attending to and was taking the time required. You stood on the courthouse steps and told the truth, he said. You sat in a gala and didn't flinch when your mother's face changed. You called your mother Sunday and told her to protect herself before she could be used by the situation any further. He held her gaze. You told Bradford to get a lawyer even though he'd been selected to replace you. He held the gaze. You have been solving problems all week with the same directness that got you to City Hall in the first place. She held the table. Those are observations, she said. The additional reason, he said, is that I would like to continue being in the same room as someone who operates like that. She held the table. She held his gaze. For how long? She said. He picked up his coffee. We said 6 months minimum, he said. I'd like to discuss extending the minimum. She pressed her lips together. That's not how negotiating works, she said. You don't extend a minimum. You replace it with a new term. He held the coffee. What term would you propose? He said. She held the table. She looked at him. Ongoing, she said. With periodic review. He held the coffee. The corner of his mouth moved. Barely, the specific involuntary movement of someone who had been trying not to let a thing show and was failing slightly. Ongoing, he said. With periodic review, she said. He held the coffee. Agreed, he said. She pressed her hands flat. She did not look away. Neither did he. The city outside continued. The kitchen stayed warm. December came to the apartment with the specific quality of a month that had been earned. Diane's ethics board review concluded the second week of December. The finding: cooperation noted, voluntary disclosure accepted, 3-month supervised compliance review with the firm retaining its license. Her attorney called it the best possible outcome. Diane called Sloane with the news. The firm is okay, she said. I know, Sloane said. I've been following it. You have. Diane said. Audra keeps me updated, Sloane said. Diane was quiet for a moment. She reports to you now? Diane said. She reports to Beckett, Sloane said. I ask Beckett. It's efficient. Another pause. You're comfortable in there, Diane said. In that world. Sloane held the phone. She looked at the apartment, her things on the shelves now alongside his. The kitchen where she had started making coffee in the mornings for two because it was more efficient. The desk by the window where she had been working on a consulting project she had taken without asking anyone's permission. It's a world where people tell the truth, she said. I find I'm comfortable in those. Diane was quiet. I should have been that world for you, Diane said. Sloane held the phone. She pressed her lips together. She held the full complexity of 23 years in the October Gala and the courthouse steps and a woman who had controlled everything because one client had found the edge of that control and used it. I know, Sloane said. I'm working on it, Diane said. The therapy it's clarifying. Good, Sloane said. Dinner, Diane said. Would next Saturday work? Or is that too soon? Saturday works, Sloane said. I'll make a reservation, Diane said. You choose where. She paused. You choose where, she said again. Like she was practicing. I'll send you an address, Sloane said. She ended the call. She held the phone. She looked at the kitchen. Becca was at the counter. He had heard. He set down his coffee. Saturday, he said. Saturday, she said. He nodded. He picked up his coffee. He crossed the kitchen. She sat at the table. She held her own coffee. She said, I'm comfortable there, she said. In this world. Are you? He said. She held the coffee. She looked at the desk by the window where her own work sat. Her work, her project, her decision. Not arranged. Not managed. Just hers. Yes, she said. The truth-telling helps. He held his coffee. It usually does, he said. This is what this story is really about. Not the courthouse. Not Meridian or Bradford Whitfield Sr. or the Ethics Board review or the U.S. Attorney's documentation. It is about a woman who stood on courthouse steps and told the truth to a stranger. Not because she had calculated the outcome. Not because she knew who he was. Because she had spent 23 years being managed by someone who believed that control was the same thing as protection. And she had decided in a city hall on a Thursday morning that the only currency she had to offer was the honest version. She had offered it. He had taken it. And the truth had traveled. From the steps to the gala to her mother's kitchen to 3 months of compliance documentation to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And it had cleared a path that none of the managing had been able to clear. This is not a story about a mafia boss saving a woman. It is a story about what happened when a woman led with the truth and found someone willing to meet her in it. About what became possible when two people in a courthouse committed to honesty and then kept the commitment. Even when honesty was expensive. Even when the truth changed the shape of everything. Before you go, we want to ask you something that lives at the center of this story. Have you ever been managed by someone who said they were protecting you, and somewhere in the management realized that the protection was also a form of control? A parent, a partner, an employer who made decisions on your behalf while keeping the full picture from you? And when you finally saw the full picture, what did you do with it? Tell us in the comments. We have a community from all over the world. From New York to Texas, from the Pacific Coast to the Southeast, from the UK to Canada to Australia. And every comment tells us something real about what it means to be truly seen rather than managed. If this story moved you today, share it with someone who is standing on courthouse steps of their own. Someone who is about to tell the truth for the first time in a long time. Tell them, lead with it. It travels further than you think. We'll see you in the next story. Stay kind.